Good evening, friends. Welcome again to Through Literary Lens. And today, as I was telling you, we have resolved to have a discussion with Dr. Vinod Asudani on some of his English poems from his collection Penumbra, on which we have talked in the past also. And now we are taking up some individual poems which resonate, which have the eternal resonance, I should call it. So Vinodji, today, which of your pieces are you going to recite for us?
Today I'll recite one poem. The title of the poem is The Battle.
The Battle.
Yes,
Okay.
The Battle.
Okay.
Had I known how I am, I would have won half of the battle.
Okay.
Had I known how I am, I would have won half of the battle. Had I known how you are, I would have won rest of the battle.
Okay.
Had I known how you are, I would have won rest of the battle. But had I known ...
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Wonderful. It ends on the ellipsis.
Yes.
It ends on the ellipsis. Halfway the sentence is left, but
Yes.
had I known ...
Had I known.
So indeed, it's a very simple, very small 9-liner,
Yes.
but it says a lot. It makes us reflect a lot on our life, on our battles, and had I done this, had I done that. So the poet, what the poet lays before us is the eternal conflict which is there in the heart and mind of each of us. When we live our life, we do have regrets, we do have defeats. It doesn't go our way, it doesn't go as per our plans, as per our wishes, and we get a feeling that we are losing out on many things. We are losing the battle. At the end, we do get the feeling, but in the midst of the life also, many times we get this feeling that something is wrong, something is not right, and we are not up to the mark in the battle of life. Battle is the very oft used metaphor for living the life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is what
Yeah.
I would like to draw your attention to the title of the poem.
Yeah.
The Battle.
Battle.
It is an archetypal image.
Yes.
Because battle in one form or the other has always existed through the long times of the human civilization. We cannot conceive or imagine human civilization, human society without some sort of battle.
Yeah.
Now battle again is a very complex metaphor. Battle, is a physical battle,
Yeah.
emotional battle,
Yeah.
cultural battle,
Yes.
psychological battle, spiritual battle. So every domain of life has a conflict, and ultimately it is a battle. And again, here the battle arises out of the fundamental assumption of mind and time. And that's why the first stanza of this poem is concerned about the person himself, the speaker of the poem,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Had I known how I am. So here, this battle is not outside battle. This is important.
Yes.
And that that is why the metaphor of battle here assumes altogether different significance. I'm not referring to the physical battle which is fought on the
Battlefield.
Battlefields, or there with the guns and the missiles, right? Or not even the traditional battles, the battle of the Troy, right? Or the Kurukshetra. So all these battles are there, but they were the battles in the external space.
This is the internal domain
Yes.
with oneself. Author, the poet is engaging with his own self.
Yes.
And he says, had I known
How
I
I
am,
am, I would have won half of the
Half
battle.
the battle.
Half of the battle. So this, makes this poem a postmodern metaphor, right?
Yes.
It becomes a psychological poem, right?
Yeah.
It has psychological ramifications. Had I known how I am,
And when we reflect on ourselves, do we really know how we are? What is our self? What is the core of our personality? So you ask somebody, you tell us your basic characteristics. So when they reflect seriously, nobody of us can really tell
and
how
this
they
is
are.
this is one of the challenging
Yeah.
questions in psychological studies, right? Because our own image or identity is very often built on the basis of outside impressions and influences that we receive. We conceive ourselves as others perceive us.
Yeah, yeah.
Very few of us have the capacity or the potential to understand themselves as they are.
Yeah. So the self-image is constructed by the interposition of others' perceptions, conglomeration of others' perceptions of ourselves.
And in modern times, we are so dependent upon the external feedback. If somebody says you are not good, if you do not
Yeah.
receive the likes,
Yeah.
you form a poor image of yourselves.
Yes.
If you are appreciated by the others, even for the false reasons, you become self-confident. So this is the challenge that the poet brings home in the first sentence.
And
that
then
I want to know how I am.
Yeah, psychological studies, self-reporting.
Yes.
When we undertake the questionnaires, when we give the answers about our personality, does it truly reflect our personality?
No,
Not
they,
at all.
because of prejudices and biases, they operate.
Yeah, they operate. We project ourselves as how we would like to be rather than
How we are. So this is really important, right? And this is a challenge. This challenge is dealt with here in this poem. Poet says, had I known, he knows that knowing oneself is far more difficult than we ordinarily imagine.
Yeah, and the first precept of even Indian philosophy, Vinodji, is that know thyself.
Yeah.
When Vivekananda came to Ramakrishna Paramhans,
Yes.
and he knocked at the door, so Paramhans asked, "Who is there?" He said, "I have come only to know that, who I am."
All Indian philosophical traditions and
Yeah.
spiritual traditions have greatly emphasized on inward journey, right?
Yeah.
Meditation. Go inside and try to understand who I am.
Yeah.
So poet says, had I known myself, I would have won half of the battle. Because half of the problems are over once you understand who you are.
And then another challenge in knowing oneself also lies in the psychological dynamism. We are not something very static.
Yes.
We are not a fixed entity who can be predicted given the certain algorithms. No. We ourselves can't really predict ourselves, let alone others.
Yeah, so minute by minute, second by second, we need to understand, reinterpret, rediscover ourselves.
Yeah.
So that is a challenge.
That's a great challenge.
And another equally potent challenge is to understand other.
Of course. How do you know others?
Yeah, what are the mechanisms of knowing others?
First of all, the problem starts from the hard problem of consciousness. How do I know that you are conscious like me?
Yes.
You can as well be a zombie.
And that is why in the second stanza, poet says, had I known how you are.
And
I
even
would
if
have-
I presume that you are conscious like me, then even when I can't even know myself, I can't know in the sense of predicting and understanding, how can I claim to know you?
So had I known,
Yeah.
here the possibility is being discussed.
Yes.
I would have won rest of the
Rest
battle.
of the battle.
Half of the battle is won when you know oneself, one knows oneself, and half of the battle is won when you understand other person. So that is how one can form the comprehensive understanding. The entire battle can be won, but the inherent tragedy is, had I known.
Had I known. That is the great qualifier. What we call that qualifies all the statements.
And
Had
neither I
known,
know myself, nor I can know
nor
yourself.
I can know you.
That means the entire battle is lost.
So now, 2-3 things occur to mind, Vinodji, after reading this, philosophically and psychologically overloaded poem, I should say. First is I was reading a novel called Mr. G by Alan Lightman.
Okay.
Alan Lightman is the first person who has received twin faculties in MIT for science as well as for humanities.
Okay.
So his novels are really engaging.
Mhm.
They are scientifically accurate and he indulges in science fiction also. So in this Mr. G, G, he stands for God, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when he creates the universe and creates the animate beings in it also, his counterpart Belhar, who stands for Beelzebub, Satan, he asks him whether these animate beings also will be governed by the same organizational principles as rest of the universe. He says yes, they will also be governed by this. He says it's unjust. They are living beings.
Yes.
They have the mind of their own, the other minds. How can you govern them by the same organizational principles? And later on he confronts Mr. G and says, even if you govern them by the same organizational principles, you cannot really know their behavior.
Yes.
Because new things will occur. And Mr. G accepts that yes, I did not intend for the suffering, but suffering has been there in the universe, even though it follows the same organizational principles. So that's a very profound statement.
Yeah, exactly. And the one of the challenges of existential philosophy or spirituality, or of human predicament is we have the intense desire to know.
Yeah.
To know oneself, to know other.
And we arrive at certain organizational principles like ABCD, life cycle algorithms,
Yeah.
and we think that we know the others.
But
we
the,
know
the
ourselves.
trouble is, whatsoever we may do, we neither can understand ourselves nor we can understand anybody else. That's
Because
pretty sure.
How it will pan out, how the interaction of those organizational principles and the environment will pan out in a particular case.
And in my humble submission, human tragedy arises out of this essential failure to understand oneself and understand other. Whatever understandings are there, or sometimes we create false illusions that I understand myself, I understand other. These are essential illusions, and true understanding never comes about, and that is why the tragedy is all around.
And I think the true understanding is in the open dynamism. We can't arrive at any fixed or stable precepts and say that now we understand. It lies in the openness and the dynamism of life.
Life, especially emotional life, psychological life, is constructed in such a way that it cannot be understood by any approach, be it scientific, be it spiritual, be it philosophical or artistic. All these approaches in their own peculiar ways can create illusion of understanding for some time.
Yeah.
Perhaps what I say appears to be absolutely negative and very pessimistic, but it is like that.
Yeah, it is like that, and one is reminded of the fable of Buddha when he attains Buddhadom and comes back begging in his own house also, Vinodji. Then Yashodhara,
Yes.
his wife whom he had left, she recognizes him and asks him that, okay, you have become Buddha, now please tell me one thing. Was it not possible staying at home also? Why did you have to leave us for that?
Exactly.
He says, Devi, yes, it was possible staying here also. But this fact I knew when I went there and meditated.
Exactly. So you cannot understand when you are passing through the situation.
Yeah.
When you are part of it, you cannot understand. You cannot understand life so far you are alive.
Yeah. And it can happen even with this small, simple game bound by the algorithms. You ask a chess coach, he will tell you the best of the moves, but when he plays himself or herself,
He cannot.
he cannot, implement those
Yes.
very things.
So this battle is a universal conflict. It is a universal conflict. It is not a question of particular domain or particular person or particular nation. Conflict is a universal. It is there.
And when we are into that situation, it is not possible. Maybe it is possible to know from outside. As Alan Lightman says in Mr. G, in the character of Mr. G, we are outside universe that God, Mr. G says. We can create, but the people who know, they can't understand this pattern. They can't understand the first cause because they can't, bound out of those walls, out of those things, So being in the pattern, it's not possible to fully understand it.
So before we conclude,
Again,
let me
hear
recite
it.
this poem.
Sure.
The battle. Had I known how I am, I would have won half of the battle. Had I known how you are, I would have won rest of the battle. But had I known ...
Yes, wonderful, Vinodji, wonderful. It indeed, it makes us think, it compels us to think and feel.